Compassionate Care Foundation held its first Bridge the Gap walk to fundraise care for local cancer patients. 7 News reporter Gage Kilborn was able to walk with the participants to get their thoughts on the cause.
On Sunday, 400 people gathered in Alexandria Bay to spread awareness at the inaugural Bridge the Gap walk. Compassionate Care Foundation Director Monica Behan Purcell collaborated with Swan Bay Resort owner Rob Reddick to host the event, but more importantly, to bridge the gap.
What we're doing is bridging the gap in cancer care, and that's how it started, and the Thousand Islands Bridge Authority was completely supportive from the get-go.
The walk lasted about 1.5 miles, going one way over the Thousand Island Bridge from Swan Bay Resort. Many people who walked across the bridge were talking about their family members and loved ones who suffered from cancer, and it helped spread awareness for the disease.
Well, I'm actually walking for my sister-in-law, Pam Dulles, actually walking for my wife who had breast cancer and my daughter who had cancer also. So
there were so many stories, and a lot of people had more than one person they were walking for. Several people that have been impacted and since passed.
The organizers were thrilled to see how many people showed up after having only 3.5 months to prepare for the event. The charity walk raised over $100,000 for integrative care for local cancer patients. Bridge the Gap is looking to build on this success for next year's event. Gage Kilborn, 7 News.